You know, I've heard it said that if Tesla's dream of wireless electricity had actually come true,
By the way, free wireless electricity.
free wireless electricity had ever come true, computers as we know them today would not work.
Yeah, sure, because of the electromagnetic interference. But I thought about this.
So all the microtransistors and everything wouldn't operate.
I've thought about this.
Okay.
There's actually ways to go around that. So it would just change what computers were.
Right.
Because if you sat there and if this thing was made out of lead, it'd be fine.
So every computer would have to be in a lead casing?
Yeah.
That's a lot of lead, motherfucker.
Do you have any how much you know how much lead we use?
Well, do you know how much copper we use in wiring? Yeah, okay, touche.
No,
so you don't need any of that.
Oh no, but my point being is that, like, yeah, I get lead's toxic and copper isn't. But you know,
Yeah, you can put it in a plastic casing.
but you know every
There's
battery,
nothing wrong with plastic. There's no phthalates in our blood or anything.
you know every car battery is lead. Yeah.
No fucking idea. What the fuck do I look like? The Pope of electricity? I don't fucking know
Yeah,
what I'm doing.
So that's why
I turn a key and the fucking thing turns on, and then I go get my cigarettes and my beer.
So that's why you're actually not allowed to throw out car batteries and they have to be recycled, is because they're toxic.
That's awesome.
It's a lead-based battery.
Thank you for watching a New World Order broadcast. We are coming to you live from the end of the world. I am your host, the Hatman, and I am joined today by nobody. The studio is sadly empty. It is simply I, my cigarettes, and a few puppets that are staring at me vacantly as their souls have been robbed from them when they were turned into puppet form by the crazy cat lady. We have been having a little difficulty with our scheduling over here at the bunker, and we have missed a week, as you may or may not have noticed, putting up a video for everybody. We had the holidays, and then we had a couple of inclement weather events that folks couldn't make it here to get everything done. So what I did end up doing with some of my free time is I was going through my hard drive, and I realized that my brother, Talking Head, actually had the camera running during one of our episodes. We were about to go into the Alex Jones thing, and I thought he had cut. And he had the camera running, and he kept it running for quite a while because we were just sitting around bullshitting, and he thought the conversation was pretty interesting. I rewatched it. I think it was about 45 minutes, and I thought that the conversation actually went into some pretty interesting areas. Specifically, we start talking about ancient civilizations, revisionist history, figures like Graham Hancock, how the true ancient Egyptians and their structures like the Sphinx, the Great Pyramid at Giza, probably far older than our history gives them credit for. And these structures are actually built on top of structures that are even older than that. How these structures may have been some form of ancient technology. There is technology that has been lost. That is evident without question, since they built these structures so long ago, and we can't build them today. So at least that is definitely obvious. That's not speculation. But I think the conversation got started when he pulled out a schematic for a commercial oven. He repairs ovens for a living. And I looked at it and I said, listen, man, that looks to me like Egyptian hieroglyphs. And that sort of thing has always fascinated me because, a lot of the symbolism and the writing that ancient cultures used, especially in what we today, when we dig it up and we look at it as religious practice or religious text, things like that. If you have any involvement in the occult whatsoever, you'll understand that there were historically two groups of people. People that knew the esoteric truth behind religious doctrines. These would be what you would call people who studied the mysteries, the mystery schools, that we have that are the ancestors of the mystery schools that are still practiced today. So that would be the esoteric or the in-group. And then you have religions, which are the exoteric, the out-group, the general unwashed masses that are meant to keep the tradition alive through their folklore, their holidays, their feast days, but generally speaking, don't understand the true meaning, the true reasons why these stories are written down or created in the first place. And things like that fascinate me. And we do end up having a very interesting discussion around those things. And I do want to leave one more thought here before I go ahead and cut to the video. When you're practicing something like that, or if you're in any type of discipline, you can assume that people who can do things that you cannot do or claim that they can are lying. So there was a point in my life where, I was studying folks like Aleister Crowley, and I was sitting here thinking, okay, communication from invisible entities, that's just imagination, that's nonsense in your head. Or things like astral projection. Okay, so you're going on a very deep meditation and you're taking sort of a self-guided imagination tour. And I'm sure it feels very real, but, I don't think that that's actually something to shoot for. I think it's hyperbole. I think these people are probably exaggerating. And then when you actually have experiences like that for yourself, you're sitting there like, holy shit. Well, if these things are actually real, if this is actually true, what else have I closed myself off to? What else have I, through my own ignorance and through my own, I don't know if you want to call it fear of not being adept, but, what else have I closed myself off to? What else is real and true that I haven't even been considering? So since those experiences, I do, generally speaking, try to keep as open a mind as possible. And we do have a discussion with, maybe things like hieroglyphs or things like occult diagrams. Maybe ancient peoples treated this more like technology, more as a person, a technician today would look at a diagram. Maybe it wasn't just symbols and art and it's meant to make you feel fluttery emotions or be darkly mysterious. Maybe it was actual directions that these people could take and get very specific things done through a technology that we no longer understand, or some of us are just beginning to understand once again. A lost technology. Maybe it is a psycho-spiritual technology, but a technology nonetheless, where if I do A, I know B is going to occur. That systematic. Or maybe there were more technical, physical matters in hand that they had that have been lost to time. We just don't know. But either way, I thought it was an interesting discussion. And just to give everybody context, I'm pretty sure we're going to pick up the conversation. Talking Head number 5 and I are discussing having a job where your boss says to you, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. And how infuriating we both find that sort of mentality. And then Harry comes in as well to join in the conversation. He's a little muted, but you should be able to hear him just fine. And yeah, I just thought it was an interesting clip, and I didn't want to go another week without posting anything. So we're going to go ahead and put this up. I don't want to disappoint the 60 to 100 people that seem to watch our videos every week. So I hope you enjoy it, and thank you very much for watching. Please, I don't say this often, subscribe. And if you enjoy what you're watching, you have some friends or anybody that you think might enjoy it too, just share the video with them. If they don't like it, fine. But if they do, maybe they'll subscribe. Maybe they'll show a few more of their friends. We're trying to pull some numbers here. I never do this, so I am asking you, if you do enjoy this at all, just subscribe. We're not going to, bog you down with notifications every day or anything. We have difficulty getting one video up a week. We're pretty lazy, so I sincerely appreciate that. Anyway, without further ado, here is some found footage, and we're picking up the conversation. If you have time to lean, you have time to clean.
See, the funny thing is that I can exist in either state, kind of, because, like, in all honesty, some of, like, you think about the amount of time that I spent in my youth, working for, like, McDonald's or, like, places like that, and it's like, my mind is never not going. So it's like, the funny thing about, like, that repetitive work is that it left a lot of openings to just come up with silly shit. And
I'm okay with that. If people would leave you alone, it's just people don't leave you alone.
I feel you there.
They want to be like, hey, remember how I'm higher on the food chain than you are? Yeah, man, I get it. I got it. Hey, but do you remember? Do you remember I can tell you anything I want you to do at any time and you have to do it? Yeah, man, I got it. Hey, guess what? Go do this shit. Seriously, dude? I just finished this other shit. You can't let me... No. This has to be done.
Or I'm in the middle of this shit.
Yeah. I don't. That doesn't sit well with me. I can't do that.
It's one of those
I never treated the people who were working for me, I never treated them that way.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I've been in management positions and everything like that.
My thing was always like Becky and Tweety and you, but that never came up because I wasn't there to supervise. But you got time to lean and enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
Good job.
No, yeah, and I think my work ethic only really slid during that when I got sick, and then, like, for whatever reason, I kind of never got back into the full swing of things, but it's like, I was on full fucking, like, tilt initially when I was
sick.
Yeah, if you recall, I ended up getting, like a really bad flu when I was sitting there and doing all your processing when you were in Virginia, and I started slipping on, like, the deadlines for stuff.
You did fine. Don't worry.
Oh no! I know.
I don't remember anything.
Yeah, I know it's water.
You know how anal I was about that. So if I don't remember it, it wasn't a big deal. And if I gave you a hard time, it's because I wanted to make sure it didn't get worse. That's all.
Sure. Yeah. No, I gotcha.
So not an issue, man.
Oh no, yeah, I wasn't sitting there and saying that it was, but it's like, yeah, it's like I enjoy being in those flow states though. Like it's kind of fun. Like.
Let me put it. I don't know, man. I enjoyed the experience of coming up with all those ideas, and the time dilation I experienced was crazy. Cool experience. But I will look forward to get it, or it's easier for me to start work when I know exactly what has to be done and nothing has to be thought about. Like, yeah, the flow state. Sure, that's great too. I
like one or the other. I hate it when they intrude on each other.
Agreed. Me too.
Yeah, that's the biggest, like, thorn in my side.
So, like, yesterday, before I started playing Zelda for 16 hours, I was working on the t-shirts for 5. I had way more in me. It's just that I knocked something out that was repetitive, and then I was like, okay, now we have to do something creative. That's going to wait for another day.
Yeah, I need to engage the other parts of my...
And I'm not just going to try to turn it. You know, I'm going to wake up and be like, this is what we're doing today, and get into that. Yeah.
That's one of the, like, man, like, I really need to find a job where I'm on my own schedule, you know?
you can't unless you work for yourself.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, I don't mean find a job through something. It's like, I really need to figure out something that I can do where I'm on my own. I understand the computer thing. I got you. I know.
If it annoys you, I'll stop bringing it
No,
up.
no,
it just seems so fucking obvious.
It doesn't annoy me. The only reason why I do the I know is because I know what's going to come out of your mouth. And yeah, I agree with you. I just, it's
like one of those things where I'm like, thinking about the video, and you're like, I was like, wait, that could sell for how much? Why aren't you doing that?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I'm skeptical about my own mathematics because I'm wondering if there's other expenses that I'm not taking into account that add up.
No, you're just falling into the same trap that I fell into before I started Ambient Light. I would have put that off indefinitely unless Becky convinced me to just rock and roll.
No, yeah, I got you.
Like, there's got to be something I'm missing. It can't be this easy. It can't be this easy. There's got to be something I'm missing. No, you know how to do something most people don't know how to do. You could turn that into a 6-figure income.
So this guy got impressed because I showed up and I asked him what type of oven he had when I called him, and he hired my company to do it. So obviously that transaction all went through them. But he sat there and he told me he had a tornado oven, and he actually had a C3 oven, which is a really structurally different oven. And I sat there and I showed up and and I met up with him at the store, and I was like, dude, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm like, I've never worked on this type of oven before. I'm like, but I'm pretty sure I can figure it out. I just wanted to let you know that this is not a tornado oven. This is a C3. It's like, this is an antiquated oven. Some of the parts for it may not be in manufacturing ananymore. Yeah. Right. And so he was like, okay, well, just do what you can do. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at it, and I'm testing everything. And he's watching me, because
is he one of those guys that looks over your shoulder while you're working? I fucking hate that.
So he was very respectful and he kept his distance. I only get annoyed when they're I can feel their breath on my neck.
Yeah. So his energy was mildly curious.
Yeah, because he owns this
insistent.
He owns this thing that he doesn't understand, and he's trying to get a better wrap around it because he's obviously just started up his business here. He bought a bunch of gas stations that have and he's incorporating delis into them that serve hot and cold food.
That's a great business model.
Yeah, and so he's sitting there, he's watching me and everything. And I'm sitting there, I was like, all right, I'm gonna be honest with you right now. I'm like, it's gonna be one of two parts from what I'm testing here. I'm like, it's either gonna be your fucking diode. I'm like, that's cheap and it uses the same diode that I use on the other ovens I have in stock. I was like, or it's going to be your magnetron. I was like, this magnetron is still in production, but unlike the ones that are used in the more modern versions of their ovens, this thing costs $1,100 compared to the $150 that the newer oven model uses.
Okay.
And so he was like, all right, well, he's like, if it's that, I don't know if I'm going to fix it or whatever. And I sat there and tested everything. I was like, I was like, all right, here, hold on. Ran out to the van, grabbed the diode, throw it in, hook everything up, and sit there and run the oven. I'm like, oh no, yeah, it's good. And he's sitting there, he's like, so you've never seen one of these before? I was like, nah, first time. He's like, I'd rather have you work on this than sit there and call anyone else. He's like, because you figured that out in 30 minutes and you've never seen this fucking oven.
There you go, man. Told you.
Yeah.
Because you're enthusiastic about what you're doing. That's why you learned how to read those fucking hieroglyphs without anybody without anybody paying you to learn how to do it.
So, and this is one of those things that to get weird and conspiracy theoristy about it, it's like, I agree with you. Doesn't that look like modern hieroglyphs?
Yeah.
Are hieroglyphs actually, we're telling stories, or are they dynamic representations of actual things that you can do and that can happen?
Oh, I think so.
That's what I'm saying.
Well,
I know that's
I think the ancient people viewed magic more as technology. They were like, if I do this, this happens.
Oh, and stuff like the Baghdad battery and it's like so that's the funny thing to me, when you call that hieroglyphics, I'm like,
that's what it looks like to me.
I'm like, yeah, that's fucking interesting.
Well, when I look at symbols and shit that are drawn in old grimoires, the first word that pops into my head is schematic.
Yeah, and you remember when I talked to you about how every ancient symbol seems to have motion to it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, these seem like diagrams. These seem like schematics. These seem like...
They are.
Yeah.
The technology is mental. It is programming. See, you're programming the universe all the time. Those symbols are programming you.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you, in turn, are programming your universe differently. The influence from those symbols is somebody who understands how this works. It's a little bit of art because you have to get yourself into the way they're viewing it so you can allow what they've created to program you. And then you automatically program reality. We're all doing that all the time.
No, yeah,
that's the way it works. But it is a mental technology. It's a schematic. The best phrase I ever heard for is a spiritual science.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But I mean, when I look at ancient grimoires, I'm seeing, like, when I look at Egyptian hieroglyphs, I see that, like, that looks like Egyptian hieroglyphs. When I look at an ancient grimoire, the word that pops in my head is schematic.
Nah, I hear you. But yeah, it's fascinating to me, like, I think that, like, whatever collapse of civilization occurred in, shit, what was that, like, 4300 BC or whatever, when, like, the Egyptian dynasties, like,
No. You're talking about the Younger Dryas? That was 9 to 11,000 years ago.
Yeah. So
you're talking about the
two
theory
off
of
it,
the
then.
fall of Atlantis.
Yeah, so take
the theory where the
off of
the
it, so that's about
Sphinx and the
7,000
pyramids
years
of
BC,
Giza
yeah.
are way older than we assume they were. There's no hieroglyphs in these fucking things. These were probably pre-dynastic buildings that were there for a long time by the time what we know as the ancient Egyptians came along. That's 9 to 11,000 years.
Yeah. So 7,000 BC then. Or earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's like, that's the thing that always, like, makes me agree with Captain Crazy Hair about the ancient aliens and stuff like that. It's like, I don't think they were aliens.
Neither do I. But they could have been.
Sure. There's no telling at this point. It's been so goddamn long. How would you even try to prove that or the negative?
It's a weird question because we're still having experiences with them. And they're just... The way we're saying alien is not what's occurring.
Yeah.
It's not the thing.
Nah,
I had an experience with them. It's not the thing everybody thinks it is. It's just, from my experience, that's obvious. It's an issue of perception.
But yeah, so it's like when I see hieroglyphics and they're, this was used in their ancient rituals for their gods, okay? Where they sat there and, like, they worship the sun. It's like, did they worship the sun or did they harness the energy of the sun?
Dude, what we're getting into here could be a whole nother podcast. Do you want to just keep this rolling? I mean, I don't know. Like, how far do you want to go?
I mean,
into
that's
this?
up to you. But I mean, we haven't, like, structured it. But I like I said, I've been working the camera and everything.
It's not structured really well. But we could just keep talking about this shit and see what happens.
I mean, that's up to you. Or we could do like a very special mini episode or something.
I mean, yeah. What you're talking about is
New World Order now, behind the scenes.
Graham Hancock.
I have no idea what you just said about my cock.
Well, first of all, I put a ham on it. No. Graham Hancock is the guy who's basically revisionist history and archaeology. And he's saying that there is evidence that there was an ice age, blah, 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 blah.
Well, yeah, and that's pretty irrefutable.
The Younger Dryas, there's these microscopic glass particles in the soil. If you go down to a certain year period, it's all over the earth. Obviously, there was a huge fucking cataclysm that melted all of these ice caps. Half of North America was covered in ice. We had sudden superheating.
Oh, New Jersey was underwater. So was California.
And it happened, according to the evidence that he's uncovered, in a matter of hours. In a matter of hours.
What was that?
These mile deep ice caps melted. Okay, there's only one thing that would cause the evidence of a nuclear fallout, and that rapid of melting is a whole, like one big asteroid or a whole bunch of fucking, impacting the Earth with the force of a nuclear explosion.
Or a nuclear war.
It's possible. Nothing's beyond the realm of possibility.
I'm just saying.
If we're here now, maybe we've been here before. Who knows?
That's what I'm saying. If you're talking about like total annihilation,
there's a lot of religious tradition that points to that, just like the Vedas.
Oh yeah, or the Mayan carvings with it. They'll look like aircraft and shit like that.
Sure. Now the theory goes that knowledge of that capacity was kept in even more confined hands back then, even than it is today.
But we have this discussion.
So the religious where those religions come from, and the mythology and the shit that's like, oh, and a dancing zebra in the sky shot lightning out of its nostril.
Oh, Quetzalcoatl, yeah.
That was like the ignorant masses. There were only a few people that understood how this shit worked.
Well, but you're also talking about the ignorant masses 6 generations later. So it's like you're talking about the oral tradition of how the world was destroyed.
And Joe Rogan has a really good stand-up bit about this, where he's like, and I think that those carvings in the pyramids were made by the workers. And one day, all the smart people died. They didn't reproduce and they just died. And all the workers came and knocked on the door and said, hello, we haven't been paid in a few weeks. It's the holidays coming up. Is anybody gonna come down? And then they realize, like, these smart people fucked off. They're nowhere to be seen. And then they're like, I'm gonna make a picture. Here's a woman with a basket on her head with some fruit. That's interesting. That's important. We're gonna put that on the wall.
That's my wife.
That's my wife. So he's like, well, what would happen today if all the smart people just died and then the power went out? We'd all gather in the street with torches. You're like, what do you think? What's going on? Oh, I'm sure they'll take care of it. Do you know how to do? I don't know how to do. Do you know how to do? I don't know how to do. And eventually the animals would come creeping around. And why is everything so quiet and dark? This is interesting. Well, and before you know it, we'd be back in caves.
But that's always been my Atlantean theory, because I sat there and I've always been fascinated with the concept of Atlantis. And at the time that was it Aristotle or Plato that's the one who's credited with the written thing,
Harry,
about Atlantis.
Do you remember where does the theory of Atlantis come from? Who wrote the story? Was it Plato or Aristotle? I can't remember.
Because he speaks about it as a real place. Yeah.
I know it came from Greece. But Aristotle and the other guy came from Greece, but
yeah.
I forget who actually talked about Atlantis.
But I'm pretty sure, I think it was Plato. But whoever it was, they got that story from an Egyptian priest.
Ancient story to them at that time.
Exactly. From an Egyptian priest. It was not like he saw it in his time.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It wasn't a contemporaneous account.
No.
It was oral tradition.
Right.
And it's always been, because he specifically says that they had power to navigate the air.
Okay, I'm not aware of that.
And
that's interesting.
And that the city fell in a day.
Yeah, and you're talking about what Graham Hancock has uncovered with the Younger Dryas period. And he's saying the evidence says within a matter of hours, you had these ice caps that were miles deep melted within hours.
And you've got all the weird things like the road from the Mayan civilization that just goes into the Atlantic.
That's crazy. I didn't hear about that.
You didn't know about this?
No.
So at the bottom of the ocean, coming out of South America, there is a paved road that just goes off the continental shelf.
Well, hey, listen, that's a little inconvenient for our concept of history, so let's just ignore that.
Sure, not important.
That's not important.
What do they think Atlantis is?
In the Atlantic Ocean?
A lot of different theories. Well, actually, not all the theories say Atlantic Ocean. There are a lot of different theories.
In the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Another one that says it's off the coast of Europe somewhere.
Yeah.
And
well, there's a kid that was interviewed on Rogan. I hate that I bring up his podcast so much, but it's like the only one I like.
Fanboy!
Yeah, I am. And Tim Dillon too, but Rogan talks about more interesting shit. Dylan's just funny. And what am I going to do? Imitate Dylan all the time?
Yeah, right.
So Rogan actually talked, but he had this kid that has a theory
repetition is the death of comedy. So
the theory of Atlantis, and he's getting like a following on YouTube now. Like he's making a living doing this shit. Like he found a natural land formation that actually very accurately imitates what I think it was Plato described, like the 3 rings with water in between it. And there's no water there now, but there are 3 elevated rings on a landmass. And I think it's near a volcano or something like that. And this, like, he's like, if you put water in these low places,
there would be rings.
This is pretty fucking close to what he was talking about when he described Atlantis. And you look at the pictures, and it's fucking interesting to think about. It's really interesting.
And it's one of those things where it's like you wonder how much like people are placing mythos on things. And it's like, and because that's how we told the stories. That's after the fall, you know?
Yes.
And so the whole thing is if there was this great civilization, and it's like, it's all going to be myth at this point, and the stories are going to become exaggerated. And yep. It's one of those things where, like, even the story of Noah's flood and everything like that, I actually saw a really interesting documentary that wasn't coming from a Christian perspective on the entire situation.
Okay.
They were just talking about where this concept may have come from.
Okay.
And on the near Indonesia, there's an area that's underwater now that looks like it used to be cultivated land from like sonogram, like not sonogram, but you know what I mean, sonic like depth.
Yep.
And there's speculation that maybe that's where the Great Floods, like it wasn't the whole world, it was just a continental shift that put an entire region under the water.
Okay. Well, there is a fascinating documentary by a very young man. You know how like with the occult, like everybody just tends to get shit wrong because they're just looking at everything through the Harry Potter lens or the Lord of the Rings lens when they talk about the real occult, real magic and everything.
Sure, yeah, Expecto Patronum and all that.
So there's a kid, I think his name is Michael Wynn, Wynn. And there's this excellent documentary.
So he's Welsh, but anyway.
Maybe. He speaks like an American. And the name of the documentary on YouTube is called The Soul Travelers. And it's 5 hours and 11 minutes long, I believe. Huge documentary. He goes over everything that you would want to know about the occult. And a lot of it goes into where our mythology comes from, especially the first portions of it. And he points out that every major civilization on the face of the earth has a very similar worldwide flood story. That's why I would say it probably wasn't a regional phenomenon. Every major civilization has a flood story, and they're all very similar.
I will agree with you there. My counter to that is that I don't think these have to be mutually exclusive. But it's one of those things where there's no way for there to have been a worldwide flood anytime in the last several million years.
Well, because you would have to have land masses. But most of the civilized world, which would have to be near water, would experience a flood.
Sure, if you had...
You didn't have people that were living in the middle of a continent. You had to be near water, especially for commerce and everything.
No, yeah, and I
didn't have planes and trains and automobiles. So, I mean, most of the civilized world, most of collective memory would have experienced a flood.
No, yeah, and I hear you there, but I also think it's a question of where societies were. Because the entire thing is that you have to recognize the fact that, like, when you sit there and look at how Europe developed versus how Africa developed versus how the East developed versus how the Native Americans developed, it's like you have drastically different levels of technology over the same period of time.
Okay.
So taking that into account, if you've only got written and oral traditions coming from more advanced societies, all you would need was for the flood to have happened in the most advanced societies. So there's a lot of leeway there because they would be the only ones who would pass down that knowledge because maybe people in different geographical regions hadn't developed speech yet.
I don't know, maybe. I haven't thought about it that way.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Like
there's a lot of
societies that would
factors.
be so radically different where you actually have flying machines and then somebody else hasn't developed speech yet. I don't know. I mean, we have we have computers, and the cargo cult exists. That's a thing, but they have language.
No, I hear you there. So I'm saying, like,
that's a pretty disparate, you know.
So, but what I'm saying is, you could have an effective cataclysm that wouldn't have affected certain regions of the world, even possibly, where societies may have been existing, but in such a state of primordial existence where they're not, like, maybe they've got language, but maybe like they're living in the mountains in Nepal or something. But
basically,
like that.
Your point is all landmass on Earth can't be covered with water.
Yeah, it's literally impossible.
Agreeing. Yeah, but I'm also saying that most human beings are going to live next to water.
Yes, of course.
Okay. So that's where that story. That's why that story could be all over the world, be so similar to everybody else's story,
and why you've got it in different regions of the globe.
Yeah, I'm agreeing.
Yeah, no. I understand that we're agreeing with each other. It was just, you know, the nuances of it are interesting to think about. Was all I was bringing up.
Okay.
I suppose.
Yeah, but you know, there's a lot of consistencies in different civilization stories. For example. He brings this up in his documentary as well. Why is it that the ancient Egyptians, we only have one story about how the pyramids were built? They said wizards that they called the Jedi, by the way.
Yeah, the Yeti.
The Yeti. They whistled, and the stones cut themselves and levitated into place.
Yeah.
The Mayans say that magicians used trumpets to create certain sounds.
Look at the wall of Jericho.
And the stones floated into place. And then you have the story in the Bible where the Jews bring down the walls of Jericho by blasting trumpets.
By marching around it for X amount of days and then blasting trumpets.
Yeah, exactly. Man, there's a lot of weird shit to think about.
And I do think that we come from an advanced society that fell apart.
It makes sense.
I feel like it makes the most sense just because if you sat there and imagined almost all of humanity dying in a day and then living in a sustenance economy. So it's like, okay, all of this shit's gone. What's that TV when it has no electricity?
A weird artifact.
When what's inside of it can never decay because it's made of plastic.
Oh, it can. Plastic does.
But my point is that, like, so you'll have this...
Especially in the ocean.
You'll have this thing where the glass has disintegrated. The plastic has taken different forms. The circuit boards are covered with corrosion.
You're not going to know what the hell you're looking at.
Yeah, like what is this?
Yeah.
Because you don't know what a circuit board is. You don't know what electricity is.
Well,
it's been lost to thousands of years.
I feel like that's what's happening when people try to interpret the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Yeah, or the Sphinx, yeah.
It's a device, man. I mean, it seems obvious that whether it's a psycho-spiritual device or something that had more physical effect, who knows?
I do...
But it is there for a purpose.
I do really feel like that the pyramids are the Tesla wireless energy machine.
I've heard that theory. It's an interesting one.
Yeah. Just because he needed it to be built above an aquifer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's one of the few things that we know about it, is that it needed to be built above an underground aquifer.
What was that electrical charge, whether it was only used as an ionized atmosphere or whether they were actually turning it into kinetic energy? What was that charge then used for? That's the important thing. Now, you've experienced a couple times where I was doing magical ritual, and we had a house that was right next to a body of running water.
Mm.
And we had tremendous, weird, poltergeisty sort of effects when we did things in that location.
Particularly when a storm was occurring.
Other locations, not quite so much.
Sure.
So there is something to... What is it? You know, that was not a bullshit to them, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
That was just another part of life. That was like, if I charge my cell phone, it will work for X amount of hours. They had a science around that.
Well,
so what was that? Yeah, that was important, but what was that charge being used for? And then you could say, yeah, but they wouldn't put that amount of effort into creating the structure unless it had real physical world applications. Well, first of all, we don't know how much effort went into making that because we can't even fucking make it today.
Oh, yeah.
So just because we can't do it doesn't mean it took them any great effort.
Oh, sure.
Their
that could have been
understanding,
easy.
It might have been way easy to them. But
Now,
that doesn't
it
mean
used a lot
that
of
they
resources.
could. That doesn't mean that it could. Resources, rocks. But just because maybe that was easy to them doesn't mean they would have any idea how to do this. It's just different knowledge.
Sure.
Everybody wants to think about progress in like this linear way.
Oh, yeah.
That's bullshit.
Absolutely.
Exactly the wrong way.
Absolutely silly.
Exactly the wrong way to look at progress and evolution. Exactly the wrong way to look at it. In my opinion.
Particularly the evolution of technology, because that's the birthing of something that you created in your head based on principles that you understand. And it's like, if we don't understand those principles, that's why we can't birth it from our heads.
Hey, Harry, when was the first electric car put on the market?
1888 in France.
1888 in France, first electric car.
They made the car in 1902 in this country.
1902 in the United States.
Guess who made it? Studebaker.
Studebaker. All right, now everybody's saying this is fucking novel technology. We had it over 120 years ago, assholes. I didn't believe him. He pulled up the fucking records.
Oh, I'm sure he's right.
He's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. The reason why we had cars running on gasoline is because Rockefeller was creating
gasoline was a waste product of the kerosene that was.
He was making kerosene. Gasoline is a waste product from petro oil when you're making kerosene. He wanted to sell it. There you have the birth of the internal combustion engine.
Yeah, because he needed something that needed it.
How many congressmen did he bribe?
Oh, so many.
Oh, but between him and like, even when you get later into the story with Firestone and GM and all of that, sitting there and buying up and dismantling the light rail systems.
In 1920, that ran faster than any car going, like 180 miles an hour. But because it was a brawler, it was a...
Oh, yeah. So, I mean... We talk about technology in this like linear or evolution or progress in this linear way because that's
cause and effect. The
easiest way for us to understand it. Everything gets better over time. Well, maybe not. We had an electric car over 120 years ago.
We had wireless energy over 120 years ago. Tesla, the wireless electrical room that he sat there and set up and everything.
That wasn't in the early 1900s, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, it was. Yeah,
Tesla,
you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Same way
yeah, you're right.
Had electric in his house in 1915, and they call him the mad scientist of Brooklyn Heights.
So for folks that don't know this, anybody who's not watching, Tesla had a remote control boat, little toy, right? And he had this stand about the size of this table. On a dock, and he put this little remote control boat with an antenna into the water, and this is way, you're right, early 1900s. And he's controlling this remote control boat with a couple of knobs and shit, and he's making it in the water, all right? Little turbine or whatever it was. Now, the thing is, not only did he invent the waves to control this thing, the boat didn't have any internal power source. He was not only controlling the boat through radio waves, the wave frequencies he was using was charging the boat through the air.
But that's my point. And by
wireless
the way,
electricity.
I would like to say that here's where
and you can find this video on YouTube.
Here's where I think Tesla, like, and I think that's the reason why it's become such an internet darling in the internet age, where we can actually like sit there and look into this, because it's not this whole like, oh, Edison, the Wizard of Menlo Park.
Right.
I don't think Tesla invented anything. Tesla was discovering how things worked. And that was, to me, like it's almost like
that's real science.
It's almost a principle, and that's one of the wonderful things, to go on a quick tangent. You just reminded me of something. Ricky Gervais has this fucking amazing thing that he does, because like everybody knows, famously he's a very staunch agnostic, at least, if not atheist.
But
he sat there and Colbert had him on, and for whatever reason, Colbert decided to like prod him a little bit. And I know Colbert is Catholic, but it's like
I've heard some things about Colbert that they cut out of his show a lot. So he's pretty down to earth.
No, I know he's down to earth. I'm not saying he's a staunch Catholic.
They paint him in a way on that
show.
Well,
no, he painted himself in this way in the clip that I saw.
Okay.
So he just decided to have a conversation with Ricky Gervais about religion. And he sat there and he posited the question to him, like a couple of questions. They were just having a little bit of a dialogue. It was a friendly discussion. And he was like asking, look, how are you sure that religion isn't, like, how do you know?
Mm-hmm.
And Ricky Gervais said one of the most brilliant things, and maybe it wasn't his own idea. Maybe he got it from somebody else.
Fair enough. What'd he say?
He sits there and he says, if you destroyed every religious text on the entire planet, and sat there and had everything have to start over with that, all of the religious texts would be different from what they are now. If you destroyed every scientific book on the planet, they would just come back the same way that they were before over time. And I'm not saying that's 100% true.
I like that perspective. Not 100% true.
But what I'm saying is the point is I don't think Tesla was, I'm going to create this out of
that's
nothing.
True science.
He was understanding what was going on, and that's how science happens.
I disagree with Ricky Gervais on the religious thing, too.
Sure, there's a lot of common themes that would come back.
And here's a great quote by another comedian named Ricky Gervais. Where he's in a show called Afterlife.
Oh, yeah. Great show, by the way. I watched all of it.
Good. Okay. Do you remember the part where that woman at work in his office saying,
oh, my God.
Okay, wait. Well, how can you, if you don't believe in God, now, how come you don't just go out and rape and murder as much as you want?
I do.
What do you mean you do?
I rape exactly and murder exactly as much as I want.
And then his friend looks at him and goes, it's because he doesn't want to. He has a conscience.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, on both accounts, I disagree with him.
Yeah, but
I understand what he's saying.
It's a good framework to look at things.
It's a philosophic calibration
that a lot of people don't engage with.
They don't engage with, right. What ifs? What ifs are huge with critical thinking. Sure.
And that's what the ancient Greek philosophers were all about. It's like people famously hated Socrates, his contemporaries, because he would just walk around asking them shit that had no answer.
Well, and he bordered on engaging in sophistry, which actually used to be a practical application of philosophy. If you could point out sophistry when you heard it and explain to the sophist why it was sophistry, you proved that you could actually think.
Yeah.
You know?
And he was really
sophistry.
big on testing
Sophistry
people,
is just something that, if you think it through, makes absolutely no sense. But on its surface, it sounds like it ought to be true. It's well argued.
Yes.
And he bordered on doing that. But back then, it was done on purpose.
Yes.
Nowadays, it's used as propaganda. And Brett Weinstein is really good at pointing this out. There's so many people are engaging in they're engaging in sophistry in order to...
Ooh, you just made me realize something that makes me, like, very
sophisticated?
Wary. Yeah.
I know, I was thinking about that too when I couldn't come up with the word.
And then
the root is S-O-P-H. But the root of the word truth in Greek is Sophia, is also S-O-P-H.
Well, sure, and it's also one of those things where we've had the discussion before about the etymology of things like the phrase pathetic. The word pathetic, coming from pathos, which means, it's like when you call somebody pathetic, they are worth feeling for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like, but man, that set off a red flag in my head when you almost said sophisticated. I was like, ooh, is he denouncing sophisticated?
No, I didn't almost say, but it sprung to mind as, that has the same root. Look at that.
Yeah, but it made me think like, ooh,
I think it's sophist. A sophist argument, but whatever. It's sophistry.
But it's an interesting point that like even with things like etymology, like language,
it's like saying that God must exist because here's sophistry, and I got this all the time growing up in a Christian household. I heard this bullshit propaganda God must exist because in order to say God doesn't exist, you have to know something about the thing you're claiming doesn't exist. And in order to claim to know something about something, the thing has to exist in order for you to know anything about it. That's sophistry.
Yeah, but all you're essentially is saying the basic principle that you can't prove a negative.
It's not only a really roundabout way of saying
it's
that,
a very rhetorical way
but it's
of
saying
it.
something very specific that's other than that.
But that's what I'm saying. It's a very rhetorical way of saying
It's also saying that you can't disbelieve in something that has a conceptual basis.
Yeah, and that's when you start getting into like really dicey intellectual territory.
That's sophistry. Right. But that is used constantly in politics and mainstream media nowadays to get people to just, hey, man, why can't we? And I'm not even going to go there. Never mind. But there's a lot of examples of it in popular culture.
Sure. I desperately have to pee, so I'm going to walk away for a
All right, man. Let's end the conversation there. I'll put this out as like a little clip or something where we discuss ancient. So unless you want to keep going when you come back, it's up to you, man.
Oh no, like whichever way you want to do it. I mean, we could always use this as part of an episode and just sit there and like watch it again before we engage in the beginning or a tail end of it.
We can continue it when you come back if you want to do more.
Desperate Pete. Be right back.
Please go.
Camera's on you, still recording.
Go pee.
And Tesla has a town in Yugoslavia that he set up an electric plant back in 1870.
Yugoslavia?
Yep.
That's where he's from, right?
Yugoslavia or Romania.
Serbia.
And they still using the same electric today
That he set up?
that he set up.
No shit.
And it's a small little town, but it's still running.
That's awesome. Well, hey, man. When you set something up that works that well, you don't have to keep fixing it. You don't have to keep recreating it. It just
the wives
works.
should be happy he created the washing machine.
You, that was so sexist.
1898.
What do you mean he invented the washing machine?
He invented the washing machine.
Like literally the washing machine?
Yeah, the dishwasher.
Really?
Yeah. He wanted to save the woman labor of washing dishes.
He literally invented the dishwasher?
About 1898.
You're not saying he invented the technology that was used for the dishwasher. You're saying he literally invented
He invented the plans for the dishwasher.
Jesus. That's amazing.
And he had electric in 1910 in his apartment on Brooklyn Heights. DC electric, though. And he's the only one that had electric lights. Everybody else was using kerosene.
Yeah, sure.
And he beat Marconi on the radio.
I know that when the radio was invented, several of Tesla's patents were in violation. Not a lot of people know that.
15 of his patents were violated by Marconi.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that guy never got the credit he really deserved.
Yeah, he really didn't cut much of a break.
Congress admitted that Marconi did not invent the radio.
Well, that's right. He finally got his comeuppance post-mortem. I remember hearing about that. Yep, I remember that.
He died in his hotel room in a hotel in New York. The FBI took all his patents. He was another one that he wasn't looking for Richard. Westinghouse screwed him out of $10 million.
Well, Edison screwed him out of more.
Oh, yeah. Edison was really a fucking... Edison wasn't that smart.
Edison was really good at marketing and smart enough to understand what he had found.
Edison was just a workhorse. Yeah. He just kept fucking with shit until it worked.
But now with Marconi and the radio, the reason why that ended up being such a shit show is because when you think about the early 1900s and how international law worked back then, because like there's no international law at that point. There's just treaties between people. There's no international
and everything's
copyright
based on
law. Yeah. And so it's like Marconi just sat there and was like, oh yeah, I invented this. And it's like Tesla fought the shit out of that to sit there and try to prove that he had fucked him over. But it's like, what are you going to do? It's like China to this day engages in constant patent violations.
Yeah, but it's a different country. What the fuck you?
Yeah, exactly. Marconi was in Italy.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, that guy got fucked. He had a hard life. He went crazy, fell in love with a pigeon.
I was about to say, at least he found love before he died with a pigeon.
Yeah, maybe that is a happy ending, actually. Because, I mean, he would never have anything in common with a human being, so... A pigeon, good enough.
Yeah, that guy, like...
Good enough.
Like, what a strange and incredible character of history.
He's amazing.
He had to pay $1 million to a town in Colorado because he blew out their generator.
Oh, yeah, when he was...
30
Yeah.
miles away, he overpowered it, and he just blew it apart, and he had to rebuild it for them.
You know, I've heard it said that if Tesla's dream of wireless electricity
Right.
had actually come true,
By the way, free wireless electricity.
free wireless electricity had ever come true, computers as we know them today would not work.
Yeah, sure, because of the electromagnetic interference. But I thought about this.
So all the microtransistors and everything wouldn't operate.
I've thought about this.
Okay.
There's actually ways to go around that. So it would just change what computers were.
Right.
Because if you sat there and if this thing was made out of lead, it'd be fine.
So every computer would have to be in a lead casing?
Yeah.
That's a lot of lead, motherfucker.
Do you have any how much you know how much lead we use?
Well, do you know how much copper we use in wiring? Yeah, okay, touche.
No,
So you don't need any of that.
Oh no, but my point being is that, like, yeah, I get lead's toxic and copper isn't. But you know,
Yeah, you can put it in a plastic casing.
but you know every
There's
battery,
nothing wrong with plastic. There's no phthalates in our blood or anything.
you know every car battery is lead.
No,
Yeah.
no fucking idea. What the fuck do I look like? The Pope of electricity? I don't fucking know
Yeah,
what I'm doing.
So that's why you
I turn a
can't-
key and the fucking thing turns on, and then I go get my cigarettes and my beer.
So that's why you're actually not allowed to throw out car batteries and they have to be recycled, is because they're toxic.
That's awesome.
It's a lead-based battery.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm not going to talk about Harry over here dumping his car batteries in the woods or anything. No, I'm just joking. It
You
doesn't.
could
Do that.
electrocute yourself with a car battery.
Oh yeah, we were just talking about that.
Yeah.
Do we remember if you did an intro?
I didn't do. I don't. I was actually planning on not doing an intro for this one because I said we're going to do Alex Jones.
Yeah, that's what I said. So okay, we did do a
Yeah,
break.
so whenever you're
Yeah,
ready,
okay.
just
I got you.
jump. You can just jump right in. We did a bridge. Yeah. Jones.
But yeah, a lot of that stuff is fascinating to think about, and I do think that we've fallen before.
You know, Kevin's really into that too.
It
Why
resonates in
don't-
both a scientific and psychological way.
Why don't I read? Because I want to do this anyway. Why don't I read a couple books on John Hancock by Graham Hancock? And I've already watched a whole shitload of podcasts with him. Why don't I read a couple of his books? You watched the thing that he did on Netflix, right? It's called Ancient Apocalypse, I think. He has a series on Netflix.
Maybe.
Oh, dude, he has a series on
He's the
Netflix.
older guy,
where that
right?
geologist that he hooked up with to write his books is on it in a couple episodes too.
And they do the
Yeah,
thing
he's an
about.
older guy. He's got glasses.
But I'm saying, so one of the episodes is about that.
Water erosion on the Sphinx.
I haven't seen that one, so I haven't gotten through all of them. But I think I watched a couple, and the one was about that structure that's like that city that's now underground or whatever.
Oh, Göbekli Tepe.
That might be it. Yeah.
Yeah, where the animals are carved on the pillars in 3D relief,
Yeah. I think that is.
and it's definitely older than we thought civilization was.
Yeah. So I have seen some of it.
Yeah, it's all good. But I mean, if you're familiar with Graham Hancock's work, even just watching him being interviewed on Rogan, because those are 3 hours a clip, sometimes 4.
Sure.
You're already familiar with all of this shit. and the series doesn't do justice to the depth of what he's getting at.
Yeah, because he's trying to get it. Like,
but it's
just
good introduction to his theory, without a doubt.
Speaking of series on Netflix, the girl who plays the person who you were talking about in Afterlife, have you seen like the parody historical thing that she does?
No.
Dude, check it out. You'll like it.
Send me the thing. I won't remember it. Just text it to me. I'll check it out.
But it's really funny because it's her doing like a character, basically, kind of.
Okay.
And so it's that woman who like is trying to convince Ricky Gervais's character in Afterlife to like believe in Christianity and shit like that.
Oh, her! I thought you meant his dead wife. Okay.
No. So it's the woman who plays that coworker of his. And she's narrating. Well,
I assume she was a comedian as well.
Yeah. So she's narrating very seriously, very straight-facedly, narrating a history series, and like the shit that she says is just chef's kiss, because it's
is it almost as good as Drunk History?
I almost feel like it's not as good as Drunk History on the account that Drunk History is people drunkenly telling true stories from history. This is like a more parodical thing where she's saying ridiculous, untrue things about history while talking to historians.
Okay. Oh, to historians. Does she ever get any of them to go along with her?
So I think they might be in on it. To some extent, but so they're answering seriously, but she's just saying ridiculous shit.
Okay, I have to check that out. Dude, the best episode that I ever saw of Drunk History is the one with Duncan Trussell, where he drinks absinthe and has to cut his story so he can go throw up in his bathroom, and they have footage of him throwing up over his toilet.
I saw that. Yeah, we watched that together.
And then he comes back and finishes the fucking thing. You're like, oh my God, what a trooper, because I have been that drunk on absinthe.
Oh, yeah.
And I do not come back from that. You can't get anything coherent out of me.
Yeah, it's like I'm just going to sleep at that point.
Yes. And I'm going to wake up the next day and feel like 2/3 of my brain is missing. And that feeling lasts for a week. Absinthe is crazy.
Oh yeah. No, I hear you. When it's like the potent stuff, like not that Van Gogh stuff, that was pretty. That was
piss, man. That was horse piss. Oh, that was terrible.
Horse piss. All right, just because we had that entire conversation, I'm going to stop recording again and then start it fresh.
Okay.
I was just trying to...
Dude, if you're in the mood to just bullshit, we can just bullshit. I don't care. We can just make our podcast fucking... Like, we're both in the mood to talk, obviously.
Nah, I got you.
I don't give a fuck. Or we could wrap this up and just chill. Whatever.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling like I'm ready to move toward chill. I was just like, it's a good conversation. Maybe we want to explore it deeper some other time.
Yeah.
But
like I could, read a couple of his books and bone up on the interviews that he did. And we can have a conversation about that. Absolutely.
Because
but in the meantime, we did over an hour on it. I can definitely put that up.
Oh no, yeah, I gotcha.
Hello again, everybody. Hatman back here. I hope you all enjoyed that. I thought it was a pretty interesting conversation. I'm happy that my brother kept it recording while we were just happened to be bullshitting between doing an Alex Jones bit. Speaking of which, while I was cleaning out my hard drive, I did find an Alex Jones segment that I'm pretty sure we never put up. It's probably an Alex Jones bit from an episode that got ruined because yours truly got shit-faced and wasn't making any sense. So, Talking Head number 5 and I have a mutual understanding. If either one of us gets too drunk and begins to make a fool of ourselves, the video will not go online. So I did find an Alex Jones clip, probably from one of those videos that we just trashed, that I'm pretty sure we never put up before. If it is a duplicate, I sincerely apologize. But hey, unless you're going to like, subscribe, and share with your friends, go fuck yourself. If you are liking and subscribing and sharing with your friends, I do apologize, but you can just stop the video and fucking go watch something else. The stop button, it's that circle with the square in the middle. So don't bitch. Just stop the video and go watch something else. Enjoy.
Alex Jones here, coming at you live from InfoWars. I'm gonna tell you, we got some information. Info. That's what it's short for. It's wars. We're at war here. You don't understand. You sit there and you look at these liberals like Lancey Pelosi, Lancey Nancy. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. That's the problem. I'm sitting here. I've started smoking. I don't smoke. I don't even know what to do about this entire situation. This nation is in a crisis, and we're going to tell you why. So, I'm going to, straight from the headlines. I don't even know which one I'm supposed to read here, because I've got, did the Hubble telescope find proof of life after death? Which is fucking disconcerting. I'm going to let you know, because life after death is anti-Christian. Because it turns into a situation where you cannot have life after death. There's only afterlife. And that's not the same as life after death. This is Jesus Christ speaking to us through the Weekly World News. But secondly, NASA takes photo of ghosts in space. So, I'm going to sit there and be completely honest here. There's a very liberal organization that I know of that's called Cartoon Network. And they have evidence of a ghost in space. And his name, Space Ghost.
Oh,
he goes coast to coast. That means he goes from New York to Los Angeles, both of the liberal fucking bastions of our entire country. Bastions, bastards. Tell me how that doesn't match each other. But the entire thing is, if you're sitting there and you're looking at, did Hubble telescope find evidence of life after death? Yes, they did. It's a space ghost, and he is transmitting his liberal message coast to coast. On top of that, what we got here is there is a strange... All right, so I don't even know what to do with this, because who the hell cares about this crap? This woman's pregnant with Elvis's baby? I'm going to be honest, who wasn't? I was pregnant with Elvis's baby.
Oh, shit.
Like, the entire thing, you have to understand, men can be pregnant, that's fine. I don't support it. I think it's wrong, but I'm going to tell you, I ate a peanut butter and banana sandwich and died on the toilet. To me, that is Elvis's baby. They resuscitated me, it's fine. Oh, shit, sorry, second headline. Strange breed of cats found on Mars. All right.
Jesus Christ, you're so drunk.
Well, I mean, it's gonna be
so drunk.
It's gonna be a strange breed of cats if they're found on Mars. Because we all know, like, here's the entire thing. You have to understand, this breed of cats isn't strange. The reason why they're found on Mars is because there's mice on Mars. We unleash these as a psyop against those mice. Those mice, I'm going to tell you why we unleash a psyop on them. The entire situation is completely confounding. Because you end up with a situation where we've got mice on Mars, and we're sending cats to Mars in strange breeds to fight them. You know why? It's because they're biker mice. They're biker mice from Mars. I'm going to tell you, we're going to post a picture of this, I guarantee you, because most people aren't going to believe this, but biker mice from Mars existed and continue to exist. These strange cats have been brought there to pacify them. And the entire thing is, I don't know who's right here. I don't know who's wrong here. It's like Lebanon and Israel. Who knows what's going on? Except for the fact that, you know, the point is these mice, they're bikers. What does that say about them? Have you ever watched the wild ones? Like Marlon Brando. Like, you need to stop that man. He had a Cherokee woman accept his fucking Oscar for it. Like, you cannot let that stand. If there's an American man who's like, oh, sure, this woman, first of all, quote, woman, because we don't know her standing at this point. It's too far in the past. We can't tell whether or not she actually has any kind of womanly standing by the Christian Bible or by the liberal Bible. I don't know what Bible they read. Maybe it's the Ganesha. I don't know. I don't understand any of this political stuff, apart from the fact that these cats, they were brought there for the biker mice from Mars.
There she is.
All right. So, nextly. Firstly and nextly. Nextly, firstly, Nexus. I don't know. There's an ice skating queen that is in a slugfest. And you can see it right at the top here. There's some bruises. You can see ice skaters beating each other up. That's the title I'm going to focus on because the entire situation is that below that is a bunch of lies. Because that's the only title in this that I can honestly say is true. Is that,
Did I
sure,
do a bad job?
ladies beat each other up. It's fine. We don't need to focus on the fact that Adam and Ed, a gay couple, were the first humans. Like, there's more revealing photos. In all honesty, this one looks like they're giving each other a hand job. I don't know what you feel like. I feel like that they're just like, they're doing a selfie. I don't understand. But the entire thing is that I don't even want to focus on that. I don't want to focus on Adam and Ed. Because the entire thing is that, like, Adam, Ed, we're talking about them. They're having sex. Sex ed. We can't even do that in Florida anymore. So the entire thing is Adam did sex ed on Ed. I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. They look happy. I don't like it. I don't like the fact that they're happy about the fact that they're in love with each other because I feel no love or joy ever. Now, in order to sit there and keep this on the air, it's difficult. We don't understand why we're even still here. Like, in all honesty, it may be an alien conspiracy. I don't understand where we get our funding. I sell nutraceuticals. People buy nutraceuticals. Are those people lizards? Do they live in a volcano? Is Tom Cruise the most enlightened person on the planet? I honestly can't tell you. But what I can tell you is that we've got this incredible nutraceutical for you to sit there and take that will make you be able to withstand a volcano. Go ahead.
It's called colongivity.
Colongevity.
That's correct.
Okay. So, if you sit there and you're taking it up the ass from the establishment, if you're sitting there and you're just getting pounded by everybody from the liberal media, if you have a bruised and protracted anus, you need colongevity. Colongevity will sit there and give you a restraint to that. If you feel that helmet pushing against that Kaiser helmet with the point on it, that hard German phallus trying to push itself, fallacy, Pharisee, I don't even know. I'm just saying words. But if we're sitting there and we're talking about how to protect yourself from how to be penetrated by a liberal, socialist, Naziist, non-Naziist, socialist, globalist community, if all of these disparate things make sense to you, well, then you need to protect your ass. And if you want to protect your ass, you need colongevity, because that's the only thing that's going to make it past all of this intense penetration. Moving on.
Well, here's the next headline, Alex.
Oh, well, thank you. All right. Firstly, belly button ringtones. So I'm going to sit there and I'm just going to keep drawing attention to the nonsense.
The second headline.
Off the nonsense. So this is what they're trying to hide. You see, this is the entire thing, is they put this up here in the corner because they don't want you to know about that. But if you talk about belly button ringtones, so if your navel is getting calls, who's it from? Are the naval calls? Is it from the Navy? Do you understand that the Navy is part of a military force that is trying to contain your ability to have a navel? Because the entire thing is, guess who didn't have a navel?
Alien.
Adam.
Oh.
And Ed.
Adam and Ed.
Because they weren't born from other human beings. You have to understand, these are pure creatures created from God. It turns into a situation where how could they have a navel? They weren't inside of a womb. Unless you think God has a womb. And my question is, do you think God's a woman? Or do you think God's a man? And if God's a woman, sure, they should have navels. If God's a man, I don't know.
Do you think,
Secondly,
do you think
redneck
God's a woman or God's American?
Well, my point is that whether God is a man or God is a woman, God is American. Jesus is an American standpoint. And I have to sit there and tell you, Caucasian Jesus. Caucasian Jesus. Praise Caucasian Jesus. Because the entire thing is his blonde hair, blue eyes, frisky beard, swimmer's body, low abs, small pubic, small pubic hair region. You have to understand, if Jesus was Islamic or from the Middle East, his pubic hair would come up to his chin. I gotta tell you that. You have to understand, that's how we know white Jesus is white Jesus. And if white Jesus isn't white Jesus, I don't want to be Jesus. Also, I don't want to be white, but I'm both. And you have to understand that. Secondly, redneck vampire attacks a trailer park.
Oh, we're getting to that? Good.
So the entire thing is the chilling story behind this terrifying curse has an exclusive interview with an undead bride. So I'm going to tell you this. If your bride's dead, that's good. Because it annuls. It annuls.
What?
No, hear me out. It annuls your premarital contract. So if your bride's dead,
your prenup.
Yeah, your prenup. So the entire thing is your prenuptial contract is disintegrated in the point that A, your bride is dead, B, she's a vampire, C, she's a redneck, D, terrifying curse. So the entire thing is like the fact that I'm terrified.
I like that she's a vampire erases your prenup.
Well, the entire thing is that's why you need a prenup, gentlemen. That's what you need to understand. Because all women are vampires. They're going to sit there like, look at my wife, or ex-wife, as I should call her. Is the entire thing is, of course she's going to suck the money out of me. Do I take pills? Yeah. Is she going to sit there and accuse me of playing Alex Jones the character instead of Eric Jones the husband? I don't care. The point is that she was sucking the life out of me. You can see it in this. She was a redneck, she was a vampire, and I don't need any other recourse. I feel like I'm gonna have to relitigate my divorce. And lastly, let's see what we got here. Million Nerd March, angry geeks, stop treating us like freaks. So, if you're sitting there and, like, have you ever seen the movie Revenge of the Nerds? It's not really revenge. It's an attack. It's an assault. It's an assault on American value. So the entire thing is, you watch Revenge of the Nerds. Those were honest, hardworking football players who sat there and got bested by a bunch of low testosterone soy boy betas. So we're going to sit there and we're going to move on from that. The truth at last, Marilyn was bitten by a vampire. Oh, Jesus. So my wife killed Marilyn Monroe. Sorry, ex-wife. Killed Marilyn Monroe. Because she was bitten by a vampire. My ex-wife was a beta redneck cuck vampire.
Beta redneck cuck?
And then she was murdered by the FBI to prevent her biting JFK. Now here's the entire thing, is at the end of this, and this to me is the most important unifying part. You got Adam and Ed, redneck vampires. We got all sorts of shit going on in the news here. And I'm going to tell you right now, you better fucking buy our nutraceuticals, because otherwise, who's going to protect you against this shit? Like, how would you even stop the time warp terror? Because the entire thing is the time warp terror. It's just a step to the left and then a jump to the right. And that step to the left will get you every time.
Thank you very much for watching the New World Order broadcast. And remember, we're watching you too. Like that shit.
So